These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackie and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
Minnesota's on a magic carpet ride, folks, and I guess you could say a magic boat ride. They are rowing themselves right into the college football playoff discussion, and I'm here for every moment of it. They've got one key and one key only. They don't have all those 5 stars. Frankly, they don't have all those 4 stars. They have a lack of depth at the top end. They have to stay healthy. If they stay healthy, I think you're looking at a team that likely could be in the top 8 by the time they get to Indianapolis and play for the play for the Big Ten championship game.
Joel Klatt. Rowing the boat.
There you go. There you go. Look at that. Rowing the boat. When are you going to dress like Fleck again?
What do you mean? I was putting out the Fleck victory tweets
Yeah, I know.
and Instagrams over the
on
weekend.
the show. On the show. If they beat Purdue, I want to see it on the show.
Well, how about this? Every Monday, I'm traveling, helping my dad with some stuff. Mm-hmm. I could bring the outfit on the road.
You could.
Every Monday, I could dress as PJ Fleck, Mackie Fleck, Phil Fleck. Well, his name is Phil Fleck, I guess. Yeah.
Macadac Fleck.
Fleckadak.
Is there going to be some type of like TikTok where you meet your wife at midfield and there's like an embracive hug in the living room too, like he always does? Like, is it going to be a full Fleck moment?
Does Heather run out to the middle of the field after every game?
She's out there. She's out there at midfield every game. So yeah.
Has Heather ever shown up to the big tailgate, the Babu tailgate on Saturdays?
No.
I think that's the next step.
I
you
think
got to get Heather playing some Tip Cup, man. Play some Flip Cup. Get her a little buzz before the game.
I don't know that's going to happen. There you go. There you go. Joel Klatt, man, coming in hot.
So yeah, that was Joel Klatt, and he, I think, is the first. There's been a lot of Gopher positivity nationally. There's been some, Big Ten Network guys are pumping him up. But I think that's the first major national college football talking head that has gone the step of putting college football playoff in the same sentence as Gophers. So let's just start there for a second, Judd. When you hear Gophers and college football playoff in the same sentence from a credible national college football talking head, how does that land with you?
Well, it's sort of hard to wrap my head around that entirely because it's the Gophers. But I mean, 2019 was pretty special too. So it's not as if Fleck has never led them down a path that looks good. And we were, post Penn State win, which we went to, Phil, we were all very, very excited. So it's not as shocking as it probably would have been to use those words, say, 10 years back when it was unfathomable that they could get anywhere close. But, in Star Tribune on Tuesday, Randy Johnson, who covers the team, did sort of a breakdown statistically of where this team is at.
He retired from baseball, and now he covers
mid-tier
college football. Yes.
He's much smaller, but he's a football guy, and he did a breakdown of where the Gophers are, both individually and as a team nationally in statistics. And it is, through 4 games, remarkable, including this one. I want to give you one in particular. And I want to make it very clear, this stat is going to be on both sides of the ball, which I think is the most special thing about it, okay? The Gophers offense leads the country with a 78.9% third down conversion rate. That is the best by 12 percentage points. By 12 percentage points in the country. Bum, bum, bum. 41 of 52 on third down offensively, okay? So that's nuts. On third down defensively, and this is where it gets to me to be intriguing because it's both sides of the football. Opponents are 6 of 42. The Gophers are allowing, in air quotes, a nation's best 14.3% conversion rate, which is 4 percentage points better than Alabama.
Yeah.
Well, Gophers.
And what makes this so what makes this potentially, and I do want to see the Penn State game before I pass sweeping judgment. But what makes this special to me is both sides of the football look damn good. Both sides. So that's where now I'm hoping personally, I am thinking that it's an accomplishment to go to the Big Ten championship game and get to the Rose Bowl. So that's not college football playoff. But nonetheless, there are some incredibly impressive stats on offense and defense from your club, Phil Mackey,
Yes.
that at least cause you to pause and take assessment.
Yes, and I know that it's been 4 games. 3 of the games were against largely pushovers, although one of those 3 games, Colorado is a Power 5 school. They're just bad. But you did what you're supposed to do against those teams. It wasn't like you won 31-23. In fact, I have several hot takes about this year's Gophers team. My first one is, I don't know how the record will finish up, but this is a better team than the 2019 team that started 9-0, finished 11-2, and beat Auburn on a New Year's Day Bowl in a New Year's Day Bowl game.
Agree with that completely. And go back to the 3 non-conference games, which 2 you won by the hair of your chinny chin. You kicked 3 teams' asses. That's different than escaping.
In fact, the Gophers, they weren't even ranked that season until October 19th. So like 3 weeks from now is when they first jumped, and they were undefeated. They were 6-0, and you nailed it. South Dakota State, they won 28-21. Fresno State, 38-35 on like a last second, I think, Antoine Winfield interception, if I remember correctly.
You do.
Then they beat Georgia Southern 35-32.
Barely.
And after those 3 games, it was like, what are they doing? This is bonkers. Like, is Fleck going to be on the hot seat? What is happening? And then they start grinding out. So they go to Purdue, first Big Ten game. They grind out a 38-31 win. Then they start figuring it out. The defense starts clicking a little bit more. Illinois 40-17 home win. Nebraska 34-7. Okay, that got them into the top 20. They were ranked 20th, then they beat Rutgers, and they're kind of on a roll. But this year's defense is better than the 2019 defense. I think you had more top-end receiving talent with Rashad Bateman in 2019, but you're pretty deep at receiver. I think your running back is better. Well, Ibrahim got some carries in 19 too, didn't he? I'm trying to think back to how they split up the Rodney Smith was the main back, and then Ibrahim was kind of the spell back.
This is a better run game. I think I agree with that.
I think this is a better team. We'll see what the record says at the end of the day. I think the at Illinois game, people are kind of glossing over that in 2 weeks, or I guess in a week and a half. No, they get a bye and then they play Illinois, so at least they get 2 weeks to prepare. That's going to be a tough game at Penn State, but the only way that you get to the actual college football playoff is to go through Ohio State, right? Not to look too far ahead. It should be a 1 week at a time approach for this Gophers team. It's Purdue championship week. So let's focus on Purdue here first and foremost. And then it will be Illinois championship week. And then it will be Penn State championship week. But the only way that Joel Klatt's connection of the Gophers to the college football playoff can actually come to fruition is you can maybe get there with 1 or 2 losses. I think you can get there with 2 losses to the Big Ten championship game. If you want to actually get to that game with a chance to go further, it has to be 1 loss going in or 0, and then you have to beat Ohio State. So that's the journey if you want to go all the way down the Joel Klatt take.
It seems like the 2019 team probably had, I want to say, even like better high-end talent like Bateman, Tyler Johnson, Antoine Winfield. Kamal Martin was a really good player for them. But this team, and Joel Klatt talked about this, is there aren't any of those 5 stars. There aren't really any of those 4 stars. And I know a lot of those guys weren't high-end recruits either. But there just seems to be more depth across the board with this team that has a lot of really good contributors that maybe make that 2019 team look even lesser than this one.
It's hard to say because right now, the season hasn't played out enough for us to say, oh, there's 5 NFL players on. I think there's definitely a couple here and there that you look at and say, Rashad Bateman was probably the best player on either of these rosters. If you took the 2019 and 2000, to Declan's point, the 2022 rosters and stacked them up 1 through 200.
Yes.
Rashad Bateman and Antoine Winfield might be the 2 best players, but there's a bunch of other dudes in here that are going to emerge as the season progresses too. They're going to be invited to the combine, I'm sure. That's one thing that PJ Fleck has done a brilliant job of. In the handful of years he's been recruiting here, he has definitely brought in some 4-star guys. There's been some years where the Gophers don't bring in any 4-star guys going back. A good year for them might be if you can get 1 or 2 4-star recruits. And I think he had a year where they brought in 4 4-stars. But at no point have they ever ranked above like 7th in the Big Ten with any of their recruiting classes. Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, maybe sometimes Michigan State, they're bringing in, like Ohio State is bringing in several 5-stars every year.
Right.
Double-digit 4-stars every year. The Gophers are filling out their team largely with 3-star recruits, and PJ is coaching them up with his systems, with his isms, his acronyms, and everything. Make fun of him if you want, but he's taking a bunch of 3-star guys and elevating them into conversations about, 10, 11 regular season wins, which is really impressive.
I think the absolute key here, and the thing that's probably different than 2019, but I think it's going to help Fleck teams, especially here, is the portal. Because you could go out and get disillusioned veterans from other schools, bring them here and play them, and they're not bad players. The portal, to me, changes a ton of things in college sports because it now allows an older person with more of a cynical view, perhaps, on what has happened to them as a player to come to a place where they're embraced. And I mean, Fleck is great at that. The biggest hot take I have is this, though, and I think that this is the most interesting thing, and PJ would hate to hear it, but I really think it's true. He has landed on the right people to run the game. He has landed on Rossi has done. I mean, if you consider Rob Smith was a joke, that his last game, I believe it was in Illinois, where they got just rolled. I mean, embarrassed. They couldn't stop a guy. And Rossi, who I think was a position coach on that team, gets promoted, and he has been fantastic, okay? The Soraka return at OC, one, it works. It works great with Morgan. It's worked great. But, PJ's strength is basically, I think, being the GM of the program. He recruits really well. His act works 1,000%, especially with kids who see it and are like, "Oh, this is great." And you know what? All the stuff that the Gophers do, I think, really works. Now it might not attract the top end 5-star guys, but it attracts decent players to good players.
Not yet, anyways.
Well, but
if they find their way in the college football playoff at some point.
But what is PJ Fleck's
5-star
biggest weakness?
Like in-game tactics.
In-game tactics, and actually probably game day coaching, because he sort of freaks out at times. And I think what he has done, whether on purpose or not, is he has insulated himself very well, clearly, with two people who are really good at coaching their sides of the football. And that allows him to be PJ Fleck, which is absolutely fine. But I mean, we knew last year, the last 2 years, in watching Mike Sanford try and run this godforsaken offense, that he was a terrible hire. He was Rob Smith on offense. He was bad. Soraka might not be Bill Walsh, but he's clearly damn good.
I don't know how Mike Sanford continues to get the high-end work that he gets. So he's at Colorado as the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, and that's going well.
Yeah,
so
we
far
saw
this
that
season for him
in person.
Before he was with the Gophers for 2 years as the OC quarterbacks coach, he did get a head job for 2 years at Western Kentucky. It was a disaster. So he took over the first year. They won 6 games. I think again, this is Conference USA here. All right. So to get fired after 2 years and a 3-9 season, 2-6 in conference, it has to be a tire fire. Where like Western Kentucky is deciding after 2 years, oh, we whiffed on this hire, right?
Yep.
Before that, he was the offensive coordinator at Notre Dame under Brian Kelly for probably the worst 2-year stretch in that era of Notre Dame football offensively. Just a joke. And there's a couple other stops. There's been some write-ups about how just terrible. He just leaves these jobs in shambles, and then the next guy has to come in and figure it out. So I don't know why the Gophers and PJ Fleck hired him to begin with, but replacing Mike Sanford for Kirk Soraka is one of the biggest upgrades for this team in any department.
Yes.
Another thing, too, and again, getting way ahead of ourselves, but Joel Klatt's the one that threw out the college football playoff thing, so we might as well entertain this for a second. If they keep winning, and they're going to have to win at least 4 really tough games, it is not a gimme that they're even going to win a weak division yet. Let's not take it for granted. But if they do get to the Big Ten championship game and they play Ohio State, I can already hear a bunch of people, and I've been guilty of this too, just get there and get your ass kicked by Ohio State, right? or the people that say there's no way you'd have no chance against Ohio State. How quickly people forget week 1 of the 2021 season, the Gophers had a 4-point lead deep in the third quarter of that game against Ohio State. Now, first game of the year, Ohio State was rusty offensively. It was a home game for the Gophers as opposed to a road game or a neutral site. They had some things going in their favor. I get it. But they had a 21-17 lead on Ohio State late in the third quarter, and then it was a fumble by the Gophers, picked up by Ohio State, and housed for like a 35-yard touchdown that completely turned that thing around with like 2 minutes to go in the third quarter. And then Ibrahim, I think that was the game where he tore his knee in like the late third, early
Achilles.
fourth. Achilles, yeah.
Yeah, he did.
And so you had like fumble, gut punch, best running back, gut punch back to back. And then Ohio State, they wind up winning by 2 touchdowns or whatever it was. But they went toe-to-toe with Ohio State in that game. Do I think they have the talent of Ohio State? No. Do I think they would beat Ohio State more than like twice out of 10 meetings? Probably not. But they had a puncher's chance in that game. And this is a better team than last year's team. And like I said, this is a better team, I think, than the 2019 team. And you have a quarterback that's more experienced with his offensive coordinator now. This is the best Tanner Morgan has probably looked. And again, it's been if he throws up a dud against Purdue, all right, then this narrative changes. But I don't know, man. I like what's happening here.
I do too. I think in these top end games, we're going to find out how much Chris Ottman-Bell has missed. Because, I mean, he is damn good. And that's and now it against the Spartans was fine. I think when you play the Penn States, potentially the Buckeyes, that we're going to get a better view of him being gone. Because there are guys they would like to pick up the slack. I don't know if they can do it in big games. But where I would agree with you is I don't think that there's a rule that the Buckeyes would kick your ass. I think you'd lose, but I don't think you'd lose, and you certainly shouldn't, by 30. So, yeah, I think that there's a chance. But here's my biggest thought, like my realistic thought, too. The before I die thought on Gopher football, okay? I've never thought, and I continue, it's a fun thing to talk about. I've never thought that this team is going to win, in my lifetime, a college football national championship. But here's the before I die is this. First of all, and I don't think that this is an enormous ask, but it would still be an accomplishment. Beat Iowa here, beat Wisconsin there, go to the Big Ten championship game, lose by a touchdown, lose by 2. Don't get blown out, please. And then go to a Rose Bowl. I mean, the Rose Bowl, and I know it's not part of the college football playoff this season, but, keep in mind, guys, I've been alive since 1969, and the Gophers haven't gone to a Rose Bowl. I think it was 6 years before I was born. Okay. So, and now, so we're talking like 60 years. So I would be happy. I would even celebrate seeing this program get to Pasadena, in this case on January 2nd, without saying, well, they should have been a college football national. I've never equated this with a national championship. I have thought, God, a Rose Bowl would be cool.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone would be heartbroken if they didn't make it to the college football playoff has never been a thing in my mind for this team ever. And it's not right now either. The only reason we're doing this is because a prominent national talking head put it in the sentence of, Gophers.
Sure.
Rose Bowl, I would think what you just said is sort of the holy grail for fans who have watched this team for the last 50 years, 60 years. It's been 60 years, basically, since they've been to a Rose Bowl.
It was 62, right?
So, yeah, 60 years.
Yeah.
That would be incredible. Now, I think in the years where it is not part of the college football playoff, I still think they look to put a Pac-12 and a Big Ten school in. So let's say Ohio State gets to the playoff. Right now, it's so early because so many things could happen here, but I'm looking at the Football Power Index rankings on ESPN.com. That's right.
Football.
The Football Power Index rankings. Kind of an analytically based ranking system here. They got Alabama number 1, Ohio State number 2, Georgia number 3, Michigan 4. The Gophers are actually 14th in the Football Power Index, just behind Penn State. Pac-12, USC is the best team. Utah is the second best team, and then Washington, off to a great start, is third. So even to get to a Rose Bowl, so you'd probably wind up playing, if a Pac-12 team didn't get into the playoff, you'd probably wind up playing the best Pac-12 team, so either USC or Washington or Utah. But don't forget, Michigan stands in your way too. So if the Big Ten, because only one of those two teams, Ohio State, Michigan, is going to the conference championship game, does the other one, let's say Ohio State beats Michigan, and Michigan doesn't get there, is Michigan sitting there just jumping into the Rose Bowl? I mean, that's why you almost have to run the table in the regular season and have that Ohio State loss or the Michigan loss in the Big Ten championship game be your only loss if you want to fall back into the Rose Bowl.
So I told Dukes this on Bonus Scoop Tuesday. I asked this question of a person that knows a lot more about college football than I do, because I thought the same exact thing. Like, these SOBs, they'd take Michigan. And I was told flat out that if the Minnesota Gophers go to the Big Ten championship game and they lose, they are going to Pasadena. And that Kevin Warren would say, Minnesota, you're taking them.
Does Kevin Warren have that type of flex? Does he get to decide which?
No, I mean, he doesn't get to decide, but he's the Big Ten commissioner. He's got flex. Look, if you look at this, okay, and I'm not saying that the Michigan Wolverines wouldn't send thousands of fans to Pasadena, but think about this state and think about how starved, what's still a decent size, not great, but it's a decent size fan base, and then bandwagon people from this state on January 2nd, they would flood California. There would be more dollars coming in than they know what to do with. It would be the Gophers. It would be the Gophers. Because I thought the same thing, and I was told no, they would take Minnesota.
Well, it all depends. Like, if the Gophers are a 2-loss team, let's say they finish 10-2 in the regular season, and then they get blown out by Ohio State. Now they're 10-3, but Michigan has 1 loss. They're taking Michigan. If there's like a 2-loss gap between the two teams, it's got to be like really close, or Minnesota runs the table in the regular. Like, Minnesota's got to hold up their end here, because what you could wind up seeing is Michigan, Ohio State could wind up both being undefeated, play each other, 1 loss, and then you could have a Big Ten West team get in with 3 losses to the Big Ten championship game because it's such a bad division. Right? Like, I think, doesn't everyone have, well, Wisconsin has a loss. They got smoked by Ohio State. Mm-hmm. So, we'll see.
You know what?
We'll see.
Penn State, I give you Penn State. That's it. Beat the Illini, and sure as hell beat the Hawkeyes and Badgers. Yeah. If they don't, I will be very down on this program. If they don't beat the Iowa Hawkeyes here and the Wisconsin doesn't have a quarterback, and you're good.
You hear that, Gophers?
Yeah.
If you
better
don't
win.
What Judd says, Judd will be down on you.
You better win those 2 games, because you know what? We will give you time, and I will fillet you if you lose this year. Of all years, this year,
Judd.
The Hawkeyes, yuck. I mean, seriously, dudes, they can't score a point. And the Badgers, this Graham Mertz, I was told this guy's the real deal. Wisconsin's first real quarterback. Did you watch the beatdown? And I know it's the Buckeyes, and I know they're really good. That was embarrassing.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure PJ has taken home 2 of the last 4 axes too. So this thing is starting to turn a little bit, at least make it a 50-50 game. For years it was like, 2003 was the last time the Gophers had the axe until
you're right.
Like, PJ showed up, right?
And beat the
did
Hawkeyes
Jerry
here.
Kill ever get the axe?
No.
I don't think so.
Brewster never got.
No, I think it was like what? I think before they beat the Badgers 3 or 4 years ago in Wisconsin. I think the last time was like Reese Lloyd made a kick or something.
That's right. Oh yeah,
That's right.
Old
Random
freshman Macadac was.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about Reese Lloyd though.
Enjoying a few.
Not after what happened a couple
LaCroix
Thursdays ago.
at that game. Old Macadac had a couple Diet Cokes in him at that game.
There was nothing like watching college football on a sunny Saturday in the Metrodome, was there?
God, it was the worst. I think it was 2005 where they had that was the other meltdown. They had a couple meltdowns against Wisconsin, but the 2005 was when the punter Justin Kusich freaked out. It was
that's a mace.
He bobbled the snap and then like freaked out and tried to kick it and got blocked instead of just like running back for a safety or something. And that was a glorious, 65-degree day, just beautiful outside, sun shining. You walked outside, and all these Badger fans were celebrating and taunting and stuff. Like, I could have just been outside hanging out here in this beautiful fall weather. Instead, I was under a Teflon roof getting my heart ripped out again.
I was at the game, and I forget what year it was. It's probably in the 90s, but the Hawkeyes came in here and won, and I think they qualified for the Rose Bowl.
Was that the game where they carried the goalpost out of the
tore
stadium?
They tore down. So the Hawkeyes fans came onto our turf and tore down the goalpost and tried to carry it through a revolving door out of the stadium.
They carried it up the steps from the field turf. Yes.
And the Metrodome security crew, in a moment of panic, put on this screeching sound because they thought it would cause people to leave. And it was just this constant it was, I kid you not, a half hour of nails on a chalkboard.
It's amazing. Wasn't there some incident during that game? It was like 2007.
No, that's not the bathroom year.
Okay. Where two people got a little frisky with each other away from their spouses.
I think that was I think I was covering the Vikings. That might have been 2005-ish or 6. And and they got two people, a woman from Iowa, who the Pioneer Press went years after and knocked on her door to talk to her about it. She obviously didn't talk to him. And some dude, they went into the bathroom and got frisky and had never met before.
Yeah. Are they together still?
Hey.
It's one of the weirdest stories of all time, but it is so fitting of certain states.
Anyhow.
Anyway, back to Joel Klatt.
All right. It is a Write That Down Wednesday here, and that half hour of Gophers optimism was presented by our friends over at Federated, longtime supporters of Gophers athletics and us, Mackie and Judd. We appreciate that. And longtime supporters of businesses in and around the state of Minnesota, even outside of Minnesota. They're all about risk management, all about protecting your business against things that could ding it on the horizon. You can find out how they operate at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. All right, gentlemen, a Write That Down Wednesday and an accountability session on the horizon.
Write that down.